For latest updates and short audio clips, follow us on Instagram, Reading the Author.
Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast Reading the Author, a unique show where we read authors' mind and not their book. Meanwhile, I truly believe and pray that you and your families are completely safe and healthy as well. Today we have Arnab Chandra sir with us, the author of The Hopeless Romantic and The Grapes Are Sold. Thank you so much sir for coming on our show. We are highly grateful कि आप हमारे शो पर आए.
Yeah, hi Gaurav. Thank you for inviting me.
Pleasure, sir. So, sir, before we get into the podcast and know much more about your life, about your book and everything, I would request you to please share about yourself and introduce yourself to our listeners so that our listeners can know much more about you, and please let us know how you started writing.
Okay. So, hi everyone. My name is Arnab Chandra. I work as a big data engineer in the advanced analytics stream for a pharmaceutical firm in Hyderabad. But keeping my work aspirations aside, I would say that I'm gonna define myself as a poet predominantly. But being a poet, I'm also a writer and an author of 2 poetry books. I used to write since I was I used to write when I was in school since 5th standard. That's the first I can remember that I started writing. And one of the few topics that I like to write about are lost emotions. Like in nowadays I see that people, they just live life and they just go survive through the life. They have forgotten how to live life. So there are so many emotions which are lost in the way. So I like to write about them. And also I like to write about mental health awareness. That's one of the major inspiration behind most of my poems. So yeah, this is how I started, and I think that I'm gonna continue this line of work, and I hope that maybe sometime in the future I'm gonna make it a full-time thing. Let's have my fingers crossed.
So, sir, as we know that the books are released and they're performing really well. In fact, on Amazon, yeah, we can say that on Instagram, reviews are quite impressive and people are definitely liking them. But from a new reader's perspective, like after listening to this podcast, many people will be willing to read them. So from a reader's perspective, can you share some insights like what a new reader can expect from a book?
So a new reader, if he or she chooses to read my book, they're gonna first of all find a lot of poems which are written on lost love, and how a certain kind of love which is toxic at the same time, but it was blissful at the same time as well. And apart from that,
A complicated
person
one.
a very very complicated one. And surrounding that, a reader can expect a lot of poems which are written on kind of a person who has lost the direction in a life. So it's gonna appeal to a lot of readers who are actually lost in their life and they don't have any direction to follow. Like they're quite puzzled as to what to do next, like how to survive tomorrow. And many of my poems, since I have talked previously as well, I like to talk a lot about mental health awareness, but talking at the same time, I just gonna put it onto the context that I don't want to preach about how to get out of it, how to survive it, but rather than I like to talk about how it actually is. So my book is not a self-help book. By reading the poems, none of the people or none of the readers are gonna get inspired, that's for sure. But if someone is going through something, like if someone is going through a bad phase, or if someone is suffering from any mental health ailment, so they can surely correlate, they can surely visualize what I have tried to put up in my poems. So yeah, and there are a couple of pieces I remember that those are very light, those are very breezy, because even in a movie, right, even in a thriller movie or even in a suspense movie, there has to be some moments where it's kind of light and breezy, where the reader or the like audience can take a break.
Ah.
So there are certain poems which talks about the happiness, the little packets of happiness in life in between these dark phases. So all in all, it's kind of a mixed package, I would say, poetry book. And the name, like I just want to emphasize on the name, like the grapes are sour. So everybody knows the Aesop's fable, the fox and the grapes, right?
Ah.
So the moral of that story was like, since the fox couldn't get the grapes, so he just made up his mind. He just made up an assumption in his mind that the grapes are sour. That's why he like that those grapes are not worthy of his time anymore. And I would like to draw that kind of conclusion in life itself. Like we, or as human beings, we are doing the same thing in our day-to-day lives every day. Like whenever we strive for something, whenever we want something, we chase them. And by the time when we see that we are unable to get those things, or we are unable to get those aspirations fulfilled, we just make up our mind in such a way that we find that those things are not worthy enough of our time and investment,
just
and
to satisfy yourself.
Yeah. And that's the thing, that's the main moral of this book, that everybody is chasing something in their life, but since they are unable to get it, they just make up their mind in order to move on. Like nobody completely moves on. It's just another excuse.
Okay, so sir, like it seems to be really interesting, but my next question will be like, what motivates you to write on these topics, and what motivates you to choose poem? Like writing a novel, writing short stories, anthologies or something. These are some sort of what I feel are less effort taking process rather than writing a poem, because you have to express lots of emotion in some short words. So why have you chosen, like what's your motive behind this?
So I would say my main, like it wasn't any kind of motive as such. Like I always found, throughout my childhood, since the beginning of my writing days, I always found that rhythm, in my mind. Like whenever I talk or whenever I write, I find that I am always sticking to a certain rhythm, and that's where I started, realizing that I'm much more inclined towards poetry rather than writing a novel, or rather than writing short stories or anthologies. And through poetry, I can find my own inner calling, I would say, find my own inner voice. And through poems, even though I don't follow a strict rhyming scheme, but I also like a rhyming scheme. I won't say that I don't like it, but I always try to be lucid in my language. So that is one of the things which I kind of don't like about the current poetry culture, maybe in India, that's happening, is that everybody is treating poetry, there are two sections. One section is treating poetry as aristocracy. They think that poetry is something that only a selective few people can do. That's the reason they use very hard language, very a language which is very difficult to understand.
Cultivate that culture.
So I abstain from doing that, because my reader base, or the poems that I write, I totally cater to those people who are in for the emotions, not for the words or not for the rhymes. So that's how I chose to be a poet rather than a novel. But again, I would write novels later on in my life. I have a plan set up, but for the time being, I am focusing on this poetry journey as much as I can, because this gives me inner, you can say, this gives me an inner joy, inner sense of purpose.
So I know I'm quite early when it comes to asking this question, but for the people who have read both of your books, what's upcoming next? What's in the pipeline? You took almost, I guess, a couple of years to just publish your next book. So the readers who have read both of your books, even the latest one as well, so what they can expect as of now?
So as of now, the next book in my pipeline is gonna be my debut novel, and I'm a very big fan of zombies and apocalypses. So my next book is gonna be zombie apocalypse. And since I am my name is the Hopeless Romantic, my first book was the Hopeless Romantic, so there's gonna be a twist of love. There's gonna be twisted endings, and I'm a fan of realist endings, not happy endings. So I always try to keep the endings of my poems, or rather the endings of my pieces, realist as I can. So that's a short glimpse as to what I'm currently working on, and I hope by the end of next year, or by the mid of next year, that my debut novel is gonna be out. I really hope for that.
So, sir, most of the authors are, working to create impact on their readers' mind. Like they want to be known, they want to be remembered as a certain genre of writer or certain type of author. So what sort of impact do you want to create on your readers' mind? Like say from a couple of years from now, if anyone, just pick a book, okay, it's a book by Arnab sir. Then what sort of that sudden thinking, that sudden impact, that, that sudden feeling you want to create on readers' impact, okay, it's a book by Arnab sir, then this will be of this kind. Any sort of strategy, any sort of, thing, or you want to be, just to be a versatile writer, like, every time the reader will find something new, like what's your take on this?
Well, my first take is gonna be not to strive or not to write in order to have an impact on my readers. That's my first take, because I don't want to be a type of writer who writes to create a change or bring change or influence people, or provides help to those. Since I write about mental health awareness, I don't want to be known as a writer who who writes self-help books. Rather, I want to be the kind of writer that a reader can read books about when that reader is kind of lost in life. So let's say if my potential readers, they are gonna have my book, but they are not gonna read it every day. They are not gonna read it on the best of their days. They are gonna read this book only when they feel at their lowest lows. Like maybe it's a rainy day, or someone is feeling very gloomy, and they will just pick up the book from the bookshelf, which is getting dust for a very long time. So they are just gonna flip the pages and reminisce on the feelings or the emotions that I've put in those pages. So I'm just gonna be kind of a writer who is very underrated, but at the same time, I would have my own niche base of readers who's gonna be loyal to this genre that I write.
And when it comes to this industry, or we all know that the numbers of writers are getting increased day by day, like around hundreds of books are being published on Amazon every week, we can say. Even the publishing has become so much easier. Amazon Kindle publishing has been launched, self-publishers are there, lots of publishers have been there in the market, even the literary agents, everyone is there. So my question to you is what sort of competition do you feel in this industry? Like when it comes to this industry, is it a sort of neck-to-neck competition for you, or you are someone who feels in creativity there's no competition, every book will find its own reader, or something like that?
So I feel that this industry is kind of getting cluttered at the current rate at which books are getting published. One of the main reasons is that creativity is losing its influence over people, because currently if you see the current market of the audience, which is who actually reads poetry books or who actually reads stories, you can divide them into broadly two categories. One category is gonna focus on very difficult words, difficult phrases, very books of high standards, like a book let's say you can pick up any book of a foreign author who writes in a very difficult language, very difficult tone. Yeah, exactly. So that is one category, and another category which is it kind of pains me. It kind of pains me to see that my country is kind of lowering its hunger for creativity. Is the category of readers who just reads quotes in the name of poems. There are so many poems nowadays that I see which is nothing but quotations. Like those quotations are also like socially engineered. Like those quotations are nothing like creative, and like anybody can pick up some buzzwords on the internet and try to write a quotation which they call it as a poem, and then that poem is gonna fetch thousands and thousands of likes. So that is the harsh reality which is happening.
One more thing, sir, and that poem gonna publish in an anthology as well.
Yeah, that poem and like one of the biggest reason this kind of poems are getting featured is because of the huge amount of influx of the anthologies. Nowadays the quality of the anthologies have been degraded because every publishing house has realized that anthologies can create large chunk of their income, because everybody wants to write and they invest like $500, 300. It starts from 300 to 500. Everybody can invest couple of $100 and then just have their poems published, but that doesn't involve the years of hard work that a poet or someone or writer who has started like loving this craft for a very long time. So it doesn't do justice to people like them.
Definitely, sir. So, sir, as you have written on your Amazon bio that you are a daytime engineer and a nighttime author and poet. So, as of now, do you have any particular writing schedule? Like every day you devote some hours to writing, or it's like random, as it happens with me most of the time. That if I get some idea, I just jot it down on my phone, on my diary, and then I just whenever I get time, I just go through it and then write. Like, how does it goes with you?
So as of now, I would say that I'm suffering from 4 to 5 months writer blocks. Like since the last year around November or October, like I have stopped writing because I can't. Like nothing is coming to my mind. Like I'm suffering from a blockage which I am unable to escape from, and I don't know like when I'm gonna write again. But generally, when I write, I would say that I'll focus on during the night hours, like after 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the night, when everything is very silent. There is no noise in your neighborhood, and I like to switch off the lights in my room because I like to dwell in my own darkness. So I like to have that feeling, that vibe along with me while I write. So that is my usual setup, and maybe put up something like a chill step or a music, like not music with lyrics, but just simple ambient music. And that's that's how I often or generally write.
Probably one of the most ideal setup for writing.
yes.
Okay, so sir, as of now, like we have talked about your journey, about your books, about your vision, about your branding, about your competitiveness, everything. Now coming to your personal life, can you share with us like what was the most happiest moment of your life? Like I know there must be a lot of them, but if you can share any single one of us, then that would be really great.
Well, most happiest. So this is a kind of a it's kind of a trick question, and at the same time there is no definite answer to it, because till now most happiest, like there can be couple of few incidents in my life which I can tag as the most happiest, but I know again that most is a subjective or relative term. It can change any day. But I would say that the moments in my life where I was very happy was starting from my childhood. In my ICSE 10th exam, I scored 100 out of 100 on 2 subjects, so that was kind of an achievement. And after that, securing my first job, that was one of the happiest days in my life, because I couldn't secure, I had faced more than 15 to 16 rejections on my day 0 and day 1 placements, and I returned home actually. I returned home during the Durga Pujas, and it was it was one of the most darkest time in my life, where I had no job, and at the same time I'm seeing all of my friends were placed. And coming back to college and sitting for another set of interviews, and the day when I received my first job offer, I could say that I literally cried for the rest of the night. And apart from that, I would say when I adopted a dog, that was, I would say, like, another one of the most happiest days. And last but not the least, I can't say that it's it's one of the most happiest days, because like retrospecting right now, when I look back, like that day is gonna be one of the most sad day I can say in my life, because like it was a day in my life where I kind of proposed someone and I got a yes in answer. But again, that didn't stay. That didn't proceed to anything. So yeah, like that's kind of a day that is very close to my heart. But at the same time, I kind of regret why it's so close to my heart.
Yes. So, sir, let's assume like tomorrow your book is about to release. So today evening, what goes in the mind? Like, do you feel stressed, excited, relaxed, or you just mark up some milestones for a book? Okay, this many people know me, so this has to be sale this much, or and what's the difference? What are the changes have you done in your mind, or it is been done in your mind ki, after the first book, then the second book, like what were your feelings at that time?
Okay, so coming back to the first part of the question, like what goes on my mind just before the launch of my books. So previously, for my first book, the feeling was completely different. Like I was very overjoyed, like I was overwhelmed actually. Like I couldn't control the amount of happiness, because for the first time in my life, my poems were gonna get published and the book was gonna get live on Amazon. But little did I know that this kind of book publishings, like it's just the first step of a very big journey, and without covering the basis, like without thinking ahead as to what I'm gonna do next. So that's the reason, like one of the major reasons why my first book didn't do as good as I wanted it to. So coming back to my second book, I would say that the day before my launch, I controlled my happiness. Yes, I was really happy that my second book is out, but at the same time I knew that I'm gonna have to very cautious about the marketing strategy, the promotion strategy, because after the launch, the major part comes into marketing and promotion. Without it, even though a book is launched on Amazon, nobody is gonna read it, nobody is gonna even look at it. So that was my major focus. I wanted to majorly focus on how to garner attention towards this book. So that's where I focused all my energy. I tried connecting or contacting my friends, my peers, my family, as to please buy this book and give give your ratings, give your reviews, so that just to create kind of a buzz in the book market. And what was the second question? Can you come again? Second part of the question?
It was how things have changed, and I guess you have already answered that. So
yeah. So the things have changed quite a bit. I have, you can say in simpler words, I have become quite matured in this sense.
And as of now, sir, what's your current mental state? Like as a person, as an author, basically, what are the things which you are focusing upon in life as of now?
So as of now, I would say that I'm focusing on me. Like for the last many years that I can remember, one of the major mistake that I was doing for such a long time was that I was focusing on everyone else but me. Like I was focusing on my family, I was focusing on the people that I fell in love with, I was focusing on my friends, I was focusing on everything apart from what was essential to me. But this time onwards, after getting into writing kind of full time, after getting into poetry and kind of letting out my emotions go out into the real world, I felt that it's high time that I start thinking about my own well-being. Because if I read my own poems, I see that there's a lot of melancholy going on, and I often look back and I see that why this much of pain or this much of regrets are being put into words on a book. So I'm focusing on my like well-being, my mental health, how I can be more efficient in my work life, in my personal life, be more useful to the people close to me. Like I'm first spending a lot of time with my family, with my dog, and trying how to get back on my own foot, how to like get the grasp of my life while I still can.
So basically you're more of a self-centered as of now, and just focusing on
Yeah,
yourself to grow more.
yeah, because I believe that until and unless you grow, focus on growing yourself, you can't
True.
contribute to society.
Definitely.
Like if you don't have your own USP, if you don't have your own selling point, like how can you provide something to the society? So that's kind of one of the mistakes which I think many people do. Like many people early in their life think that they will do this, they will do that, but
slowly,
one of the
it all
main
faded
thing,
away.
yeah.
Okay. So, sir, my last question to this podcast will be like, after listening to this podcast, many people will start writing, or many people will be there who will be holding their first draft in their hand, in their laptop, in their diaries. So what would be your single piece of advice for them, if you would like to give?
I would say for the first, there are two parts of the writing which I very much focus on, or very much put my efforts into. So the first part is the first draft. So for the first draft, I would say write as nobody's watching or nobody's ever gonna read your piece. So write as much as you can, write wrong, write as lengthy as you can, use wrong words, but at the same time, once your first draft is finished, take a break, like take a couple of days or couple of weeks, and then come back and focus on your second draft. Because this was one of the mistakes which even I did for my first book, and I see that so many other authors also do this, is that they don't focus on editing. They don't focus on writing the second draft, which is the most important thing. And this time when someone is writing or focusing on the second draft, they have to edit it in such a way that the whole world is watching. So they have to rewrite everything if they have to, but they have to do it. Otherwise, any unfiltered or this kind of work, if it goes out in the market, so some of the pieces, it's good, it's good to have unfiltered work in your book, because that lets out the raw emotions that goes on in your mind, but not all the poems, but not all the stories.
Okay, so that's all for today, guys. I hope you must have enjoyed this episode, and if you do, then do follow our podcast, Reading the Author, available on all the leading podcast platforms. And don't forget to buy and read the book. आप जस्ट Amazon पे जाएं, वहाँ पे सर्च करने अर्नब चंद्रा सर की दोनों बुक्स आ जाएंगी. ज़रूर खरीदें, पढ़ें और अपने जानने वालों के साथ, चैनल से ज़रूर शेयर करें. Thank you so much, sir, for coming on our show. It was my honor to host you today.
Thank you, Gaurav, for giving me the time and giving me this opportunity. It was really nice talking with you.